Hi everybody, this is Lisa with Your Health Your Way. If you saw our episode number 52, you heard me mention a couple of things about how I had been emotionally eating or eating out of emotional stress during this past year. So I want to talk a little bit about that. First of all, know that you're not alone. I think probably a lot of people, I'm not going to say most because I don't have numbers, but most people probably do eat out of some type of emotional stress. I think it happens to both men and women, even though it is commonly associated with women, the whole emotional thing, but men are emotional too, and I think men also have emotional eating problems. The reason that that happens is, let's say you have a situation in life where you're trying to deal with another individual. You have a problem with another person. In the ideal world, when you have that happen, you talk to the person, you communicate, you vent your feelings, you calmly discuss things. Now that's the ideal world. In reality, we're really not raised with knowing how to communicate. I mean, think about our childhood homes. You know, was it a home where like nobody ever talked about problems, everything was brushed under the table? Or was it another extreme where everything was yelling and screaming? Or was it this in-between kind of like passive-aggressive where you never really knew where you stood and you didn't know what was going on? So we don't know how to communicate with each other. And then when we want to communicate with a person who we're having a problem with, there could be problems that come up. For example, that person who may have hurt us in the past might not be alive anymore. So we can't really discuss our feelings with them. It could be that we do approach someone who is around and they have kind of like a wall, a fortress around them where nobody dare talk about anything negative with this person because God only knows what will happen. You just, imagine the worst. Or you might talk to someone who turns it around on you and blames you and wants to bring up other problems, not really focusing on the issue. Or it might just be pure denial. In any case, when we run up against that wall, we feel unheard. And when we feel unheard, I think it leads to hurt and resentment. But yet we need to be able to move forward in life. We need to be able to move on in spite of that. And when we don't have an outlet of communication or a healthy way of dealing with it, we do things like we might resort to prescription medication for depression or anxiety. We might get into the habit of gambling or watching too much TV, distracting ourselves on the computer, watching porn, spending money that we don't have. But the cheapest and most socially acceptable thing we can do to suppress our emotions is eat. It's food. I'll give you a personal example. In January, Kurt and I did 30 days of raw. I did 70% raw. After we finished that, I slowly started eating more processed foods and cooked foods, like junk foods, not just processed. I mean like junky foods. In April, a situation happened where I had this realization that I can't believe I never had before in my life, but it was so obvious to me, and it created a lot of hurt and anger and resentment. And there were a couple of different people involved in this. One person is one of the people that like nobody dare touch, nobody dare approach or upset. And the other person was someone who denied the situation. In the ideal world, you say what you feel, they acknowledge it, they take responsibility, they apologize sincerely, and there's healing. But when there's that wall that you meet with that resistance, it just adds insult to injury. So this resentment and anger that I had just lasted over the months and it built up. I started eating really junky foods. Now, the good thing is that Kurt and I don't keep the junky foods in the house to avoid that temptation because we're both emotional eaters and we both have a lot of cravings for food, especially sweets and cheese and things like that, bread. So during this time, Kurt was also doing his 90 days of smoothies only. I didn't want to bring tempting foods in the house. I didn't want to sabotage his plan. So what I did was I would go out and eat, or I would bring home all this junky food and I would either sit in my car in the garage or come down in the basement and eat in here so that he wasn't tempted. During that time, my energy went down. I was sad. I was angry about this emotional situation. I didn't have any interest in doing anything. My weight went up. And I even had a situation in my neck where the tension got so bad in my neck. That's where I usually hold stress anyway. But it got so bad in my neck that when I would sleep at night and I would go to turn my head, it felt like I had a steel rod in my spine. And I had to just crank it ever so much, and it hurt like so much. And I'd go to the chiropractor and the massage therapist, and I'd even tell him, I said, I know this is emotional, this has to do with some emotional stuff that happened, because I could pinpoint it happening right after this situation earlier this year. And they would kind of alleviate it a little bit, but it didn't really heal it. So that went on, I lived with it. In July, I started working out again at the gym, but I wasn't following the food plan very cleanly. And in the ideal world, you exercise and eat a clean diet and you're golden. But I wasn't eating a clean diet. Then in October, we had a couple of other health crises in the family, one with a person and a couple with two of our dogs. And that was just the excuse for me to completely stop taking care of myself. So Kurt and I would talk about, well, we have all these addictions and all these cravings, and what's going to work for us, what kind of plan can we have where we don't feel we're depriving ourselves, and what's a balanced diet, and what's a balanced anyway. Balanced depends who you ask. You know, the food pyramid people or the raw foodist, everybody has a different, what balanced is. But finally, after just the frustration and just getting tired of talking about food so much, I said, this is emotional. The reason I'm not successful with avoiding all this junky food and all these addictive, chemically treated foods is emotional. So soon after that, I was able to release this heavy addiction. And sometimes we need to acknowledge the truth about some things to help us move forward. And if we don't listen to what our minds and our bodies are telling us, it's going to keep harping at us, either in pain or in food addiction, or lack of sleep, many different things, bad dreams, whatever it takes to get our attention. It reminds me of an example of like when people go and they lose a bunch of weight, they'll either go on a TV show or they'll do a documentary, they lose all this weight either through juicing or through intense exercise and eating lean meats or whatever it is, and their health improves, they feel great, they have all this energy. And then over the months or maybe the years, they start going back to old habits, their poor health problems come back, their weight comes back. So if you find yourself struggling with food, if you find yourself going back and forth, being successful and then not successful, find out what the emotional source is. What is it that either recently happened, or maybe you can pinpoint it to something that happened right about the time where you started falling off the wagon, or it could be something from childhood that comes up now, and and it's a memory that comes up and it's there for you to deal with. So talk to someone. If you can't resolve it on your own through meditation or self-hypnosis, talk to someone who will be non-judgmental, someone who will see you for who you are, who will see the big picture of things, who will not see you as someone who needs to be fixed, just someone who will help you move through this, and will help you move through this in spite of the harsh truths that some of us have to live with, that are hurtful, that is hurtful. So that's what I have to say, and I hope this has helped some of you. Please, on our YouTube videos, please leave your comments, like our videos, and if there's anything that you want us to talk about specifically, please let us know, because we want to know what you want to know. Thank you, and have a great day. Bye-bye.